Hi, I'm Penny Carlson, and welcome to another segment of Topics in Digital Photography. In our last segment, you learned how to use the selection tools in Photoshop and practice them by creating either a veggie man, veggie woman, or veggie animal. I love seeing all the creative things that you could do with vegetables. In this segment, we're going to put those selection tools to work, and we're going to create a composite image. Now, you can do a lot of things with selection tools. Creating a composite image is just one of them. Other things you can do with selection tools are select out your subject and just selectively sharpen that, or change the exposure, or change the color. Select your background and blur it, or maybe make your background black and white and keep your subject in color. So think about these things whenever you're using Photoshop, and think about the different creative ways that you can use those selection tools to create the picture that you want to create. I've got some of my tools here that I like for doing serious photoshopping. I have a Surface Pro, and I like the Surface Pro because it runs the full version of Photoshop with no problem. And I can actually use a stylus to trace out my shapes right on the screen, and that's really nice when you're doing fairly intricate selections. I use a gaming mouse for Photoshop, and the nice thing about a gaming mouse is that you can program a lot of the shortcuts that you use all the time into your gaming mouse, and it's just a little nicer feel to it. Works fast. You can slow down how fast or how slow your mouse goes. So you can slow it down if you want to work on really intricate selections, although the pen is the best thing for doing the selections. And then I've got my full-size screen up here that the Surface Pro is hooked up to, so I can see my photo in full size. Now, touchscreen computers are pretty easy to come by nowadays, but if you still have an old computer, you can use one of these graphic tablets. And the graphic tablet isn't quite as easy to use because you have to look at your screen up there and you can't just trace your selection right on your touch screen. But it's still easier to make more intricate selections with the graphics pad and stylus than it is with just using a regular mouse. And you can get these pretty inexpensively now. Wacom makes a lot of them. And Wacom also makes a lot of really nice stylus pens. Okay, let's get started and put our newfound skills to work by using the selection tools to create a composite image. I'm going to open Adobe Bridge. I've got the 3 pictures that I'm going to use to make our composite image here. I'm going to select all 3 of them. What I want to do is open these photos in Photoshop as layers. And the easiest way to do that is to start out in Adobe Bridge. Select your photos that you want to use, go up to Tools, Photoshop, and load files into Photoshop layers. It always takes a little bit of time before your photos load into layers. Alright, we now have our 3 photos up in Photoshop. You'll notice the photo of the cat is a little bit smaller than the other photos. Well, that's okay because we're going to resize it. I want to make that photo my background layer, so I'm going to put the hand tool on. I'm going to move that to the bottom. Let's make the other layers not visible. Okay, we'll select our cat layer and name it cat. Now what I want to do is resize this photo so it's the same size as the other 2. To do that, I go up to Edit, Free Transform, and we can see a little bit of a problem here. As I move it around to make it larger, it's actually deforming the image. Well, there's a trick to that. If we go to Free Transform now, and this time we'll hold down the Shift key as we resize our image, and that'll make sure that our proportions stay exactly the same. Okay, worked perfectly this time. So remember that. Hold your Shift key down. We're going to apply the free transform. Holding your Shift key down works for other functions in Photoshop as well. Anything that's changing your image in Photoshop and you want to keep the proportions the same, if you hold your Shift key down, it'll do that. Let's work on these other photos now. And I actually took these photos using a remote shutter release with the idea that I was going to create this final composite picture. Let's name our other layers. We've got Rider, and I'll call this one On Ground. Let's select this layer and work with this one first. With some pictures, you'll actually find that it's a lot easier to select your background out if it's uniform than it is to select your subject. And it's easy enough to do that. So let's start with this image by selecting our background. And truthfully, for almost all my selections, I use the quick selection tool. Make sure that you've got it on Add to Selection. And I'm using a really large brush here. When I want to change my brush size, I'll just hit either the right bracket key to increase it or the left bracket key to decrease it. And my screen capture software isn't really good at showing the changes in the brush size. So sometimes the brush will either be a lot larger or a lot smaller than it appears on the screen. If you want to know what brush size I'm using, you can look at the brush size up on the corner. I'm going to subtract from the image. You got the idea with the selection tool, so let's speed this up. Whenever you make a selection in Photoshop, you can inverse that selection. So if you've got a very uniform background, it's often easier to select out your background and then inverse it to select your subject. To inverse your selection, you simply go up to Select and then Inverse. And now we're working on the subject rather than the background. To get in there, the more detailed areas, I'm going to increase my size by hitting Control or Command plus. It's going to take you some time to do the intricate details on a selection. And thanks to the special effects in my video software, you don't have to sit through the whole selection process. Once I've got a reasonably good selection, I want to refine it a little bit more by using my quick mask. I'll click on my quick mask and I'm going to use a round medium hard brush. Right now I've got it so I can paint out the background and make that brush really small to get into intricate areas like between my fingers. Now I'm going to switch my mask to the selected area and paint in areas of the selection that I missed. The brush I'm using is a lot smaller than it appears on my screen capture software. Go back to my hand tool so I can check out the rest of my selection. I'll go back and forth with the quick mask between the background and the selected area a couple times to refine my selection. I'm using the right and left bracket key to make my brush size smaller and larger as needed. It's much easier to make these more intricate selections with a stylus than it is with a mouse. But if you've got a steady hand, a mouse will work. Time to fast forward it a bit. My selection is looking pretty good right now. Right, I think I'm ready to save it. You spend a lot of time working on a selection. It's always good to save your selection so you can reload it at some point in time if you want. I'm going to call this Me on Floor. And the only part I really need of this picture is me. And I want to put this layer into the layer with the cat. Before I copy this as a new layer, let's refine our selection a little. And this can help your selection to blend in with your picture. So I'm going to go up to my select and use the Refine Edge option. That'll bring up a dialog box. We've got a whole bunch of sliders here. My edge is pretty good. I don't want to shift it. If we had some issues where maybe you were outside of the lines a bit and you wanted to bring more of your subject in or less of your subject in, you could shift your edge. Usually I'll just use the smooth and feather a little bit, and it gives you a view of how your selection looks as you move those in. And feathering really helps blur the edges a little bit on your selection so maybe they don't look too harsh in your final picture. The decontaminate colors probably isn't doing much on this selection, but it can really help if you've got fine detailed selections such as someone's hair. I'm going to check that off since it might help take some of my background color out if I've left a little bit in. You can see that as you move these sliders around, you can get an idea of what things look like by looking at your subject. Once I'm done, I'm going to output to a new layer and click OK. Now I've got a new layer that's just me lying, and I can put it on the ground under the cat. Oops, it's a little bit too big. Let's just look at the layer of me, and I see I got another issue I want to take care of. I've got a couple of little spots on my jeans. Let's take them off. I'm just using the spot removal tool, and that should be sufficient. This is a fairly easy fix. Okay, that looks better. I don't want to have dirty jeans while the cat's jumping on me. Just in case I mess something up, I'm going to duplicate my layer. Never hurts. Okay, let's make our cat layer visible. Well, I'm huge here, and I want myself to be under the cat. So we're going to use the free transform again. Remember, hold down your shift key to keep the proportions the same as your original picture. And I'm going to put myself right about where that mouse is that he's pouncing on. I'm going to tilt myself up just a tiny bit and hit apply. Okay, let's take that off. Let's clean up our layers a little bit and get rid of some ones that I'm not going to use. And now we're going to work on our rider photo. I'm going to use the quick selection tool. Make sure it's on add to selection. And this time I'm going to select the subject. If you're taking photos with the idea that you're going to use them for a composite image later, it is good if you have a lot of contrast between your background and your subject that you want to cut out and put into the other picture. If your colors are very different, it'll make it a lot easier to select. We're just using the same process on this picture that we used on the other one. I'm not going to select that back leg there because when I put myself on the cat as a rider, you don't want to see that. And we can go through this process pretty fast. We'll go back and forth between my quick mask and my selection tool. And remember that the brush sizes that appear on the screen aren't really accurate because my screen capture software just doesn't get them quite right. I've got a soft brush here. That'll feather your edges a little bit. You could make your brush a little harder by moving the hardness slider over to the right a bit. But since I'm making myself pretty small, we don't really need fine detail in this. And the softer brush feathers the edges and can make your selection blend in a little better. Using my right and left bracket key to change my brush size most of the time. But if you want to change your brush size or your brush shape or your brush hardness, you can also simply right click while you're painting. You want to use a round brush for something like this. Okay, things are pretty good. I'm going to save my selection in case I need to reload it for some reason. And now, just like we did last time, I need to output my selection to a new layer. So I'm going to go up to Select, Refine Edge. It'll bring up my dialog box. I'll move it over so I can see my image as I change things. Feather the edges, smooth the edges a bit. And I'll decontaminate my colors in case I have a little bit of green on my edges. And I'm going to output my image to a new layer. Okay, there we go. And let's put my other self in the picture to give me perspective because I want the two me's to be around the same size. I'll go up to the free transform again. Hold the shift key down to keep my proportions the same. And make myself about the right size to ride that cat. My placement about right. A photo where I was riding a horse would have been a little bit better for this photo because the position would have been right. but I was stuck taking these photos in my dining room. Free transform can only take you so far when you're manipulating an image. With this image, my position just isn't quite right. Well, there's another tool in Photoshop that gives you a lot more leeway in moving your image around and bending it and letting you shape it the way you want to shape it. And it's called Puppet Warp. To get into Puppet Warp, I'm going to go up to Edit and click on Puppet Warp. I've got my rider layer selected, so that's the one that the Puppet Warp's going to be applied to. And what you want to do with Puppet Warp, it'll give you these pins. And you want to put the pins into the areas that you want to stay stable, where you want to bend basically the rest of your photo around those pins. You may have to put pins in a few places to keep your image in place, except for the parts you want to move. Once you've done that, you hold down your left mouse key and you move the part of the image that you want to move. And you see I put the pins in the knee, so as I move my leg, it rotates around my knee. You just kind of rotate it a little bit until you get it right. Put pins in different places. I want to stretch my hand out a little bit more here, so I'm going to put some pins in the elbow. And sometimes things won't move quite the way you think they're going to move, so you need to either take pins out or add more pins. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let me apply it. Now I think I have a pretty good seat. Let's add some text to our picture. So I want to create a new layer to add text. And to do that, I'm just going to go down to the icons on the bottom. The icon next to the trash can will let you add a new layer. Just click on that. I want my text layer to be on top. I accidentally made two, so let's get rid of one of them. I can either drag it to the trash can, or I can simply right click on it and hit delete. Or you can actually just hit the delete key. So I'm going to select the new layer I created, which I've moved to the top. I'm going to select the T tool over here on the left, which is your text tool. Let's draw a box that the text will fit in. You can see the text box is over here in the upper left-hand corner. I want something that looks a little handwritten. Notice there's a black box in there. That's the color. Right now the text is black. I want to make it white, but you can make it any color you want. Text right now is really little, so I need to make it bigger. So I'll just select what I wrote and go up and change my font size. My text looks good, but I want to apply some effects to it. So to do that, I'm going to go down to the little FX thing on the bottom. And I want to put a drop shadow on it at least, but when I click one of those, it'll bring up a dialog box. I moved it over so I can see my text, because you'll be able to see the effects. I'm just going to fool with the sliders and see what looks good. And you can check off some of these boxes and see what looks good to you. If you want to be able to use this on the next text box you use, make sure you click to make it your default. Then hit OK. I'm going to stay on that same text layer, so my font's the same, and put a little text over me lying on the ground. I think help is appropriate. So we see our font's exactly the same, but it didn't apply the effect to that text. So in order to do that, we need to make sure that that text is selected. Go down to our effects again. And because I clicked on the last make it the default, we simply have to hit the OK, and you can see it looks exactly the same. That's cool, but I want to put little text bubbles around these. Okay, I'm going to use a pencil for this because I want a nice hard line. All right, I want to change my pencil color to white, and I can actually do that by just flipping my boxes down here, which are foreground and background. But I could also bring up the color chooser and use whatever color I wanted. Okay, so there's a hand-drawn text bubble. Let's draw another one down here. Let's say I decide that I want to change some of my wording, but maybe for one version I want to use wording one way, and for another version I want to use it another way. Instead of saying help, I want to say Zeus no. Well, I want it to be exactly the same as the layer with help, so I'm just going to duplicate that layer. And then I'm going to change the text in the text box. I'm going to select the help, and I'm just going to change it. This guy, I'm going to say Zeus, that's the name of my cat. Zeus no. Just go to my move tool and move it, and it fits perfectly. I don't have to delete my other layer because maybe I want to come back at some point and do a version where it says help. Okay, that looks good. Now I can come back and use whichever layer I want. I think we're done. Let's save this image and let's go back and look at our final image. There it is. And if I select it and hit the space key, it'll give us a full screen view. You can have a lot of fun with these composite pictures. The composite pictures that we've produced so far are very simple. And in fact, you guys have really only touched on the functions of Photoshop. You've got to start, but there's so much more to learn. You can always keep learning in Photoshop. In our next and last class, what I'll do is put together some reference videos and articles that can help you explore Photoshop and become even better at using it. But at this point, I think you have the basic tools to start having fun with your photographs and improving your creative process.